I'll remind everyone, if you're going to speak to an item or make a motion, when we do have a forum, please identify yourself for the record so the rest of has clear records in the future. And since we do have some new members joining us starting this year, start to my left and we'll just introduce each person as they come around. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Hall.
Martha Sue Hall, Albemarle.
Wes Hartsel, Town of Norwood.
Sean Rush, Town of East Spencer.
Kenny Godwin, Love Valley.
Elaine Powell, Montgomery County.
Beru Burn, Fishel, North Carolina, Nelson County.
We'll recognize those on the Zoom call, please. Is our
Melissa Merrill from Union County.
Jennifer Staff, are you there? Staff, are you there?
Yes, I'm done. I'm here.
Yes, I'm done. I'm here.
All right, I'm Tony Long. All right, I'm Tony, filling in tonight for our chair and vice chair who are both somewhere else. So we welcome everyone tonight. And at this point, let's have a moment of silence. It seems that town of Peachland lost a commissioner today, Mr. Kenneth Ravel. Let's just take a moment of silence to reflect and do with this thing. There, next item, we'll stand and everybody will do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think there was someone else that was trying to say something. Yeah, okay.
You get someone else, okay? So at this point, we still do not have a quorum, so when we get a quorum, we'll go back.
Commissioner Hovis is now on.
Okay.
Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for joining.
All right, we've done the pledge of allegiance. The next item is agenda amendments. There are no amendments to the March 12th Centralina Executive Board meeting, so we will move now to the consent agenda, but we will skip that because we don't have a quorum. So we're going to item 7 and turn it over to Geraldine.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Appreciate y'all joining in person and via Zoom. We wanted to do a short overview of the executive board, since we do have some new members with us. Councilmember Goodwin, appreciate you joining. Councilmember Hartzell, and Councilmember Burns. Appreciate you all joining this body, and we want to make sure that we have just kind of a good standing and setting for what the responsibilities are for the executive board. So in terms of the role of the executive board, a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. This is an additional commitment beyond the regular Board of Delegates meetings, which is 4 times a year. We see the executive board as a true partner in working with staff and collaborating with us to make sure the organization is moving in the right direction. But ultimately, as our governance board, you are the decision makers on a couple of key issues when it comes to how we operate. So contracts, there are several on the consent agenda tonight that allows us to receive certain funding as well as policies and procedures. Those all fall under decision maker role. You're our collaborator. You're our eyes and ears of what's happening in your community so that we understand what are the issues that are most pressing in our region and help us understand how to move our programming in alignment to those issues. We consider you our primary networkers, so helping to get participation in Centralina events, whether that's board meetings or our Centralina Learns or opportunities to engage outside of formal meetings. You're helping us to connect to other delegates and to your communities. And then lastly, as an advocate, so working with us on our state and federal advocacy agendas and collaborating to really represent the region. In a decision maker role, just a couple of things to highlight that are coming up this year. So we will present the annual budget recommendation that was done at the the January meeting to the executive board. You also review quarterly budget amendments and contracts over certain dollar thresholds that are not delegated to me for approval through our bylaws. Also, every year in November, you are presented with our audit for approval from our auditors. In terms of collaborator, this is where we're really collaborating with you to set the strategic direction of the organization. So tonight, you'll hear more about our draft strategic plan and to provide some guidance before you receive the draft plan for approval at the next meeting in April. Also, every year we develop a work plan that guides our annual activities that aligns to our budget. And you have the opportunity to review and approve that at your June meeting. And then lastly, we will provide updates on our programs and present to you some key questions for feedback and guidance. Linda tonight will be talking about our aging programs. And really that's an opportunity for you to share with us your point of view, will work best in your opinion and give us guidance as we make decisions at the staff level. As a networker and an advocate, you're our bridge to other board of delegates or to the board of delegates and other delegates. So providing that support and outreach and also helping to advance our advocacy agenda. So when it comes to your meetings coming up, the next meeting, there'll be a consent agenda items on every meeting. We also have a Centralina spotlight at each meeting, and that's an opportunity for you to get to know our services and our programs in a greater detail. In April, you see a couple of items for strategic decisions, our compensation recommendation, a quarterly budget amendment, and our strategic plan approval is coming up in April. Your next meeting will be in June. So that's our final meeting of the fiscal year. So there's some wrap-up business in terms of final budget amendments, as well as reviewing and approving our proposed work plan for next fiscal year. In September, you'll hear another Centralina spotlight, and our in-focus discussion will be on brownfields, and we'll continue to work on our federal and state relations updates. And then lastly, in November, there's some governance items, including formation of the nominating committee, the audit review, and then any updates to our state and federal relations agenda in November. So that is the forecast of what is to come. Be happy to answer any questions that executive board members might have about the executive board and your role on this body.
I think it would give, or it would help new members to give examples of how you would connect Centralina. Like I just did it in this meeting. I just connected affordable housing with Linda Miller. But I think it's good to have examples.
As that bridge builder role?
Yes, yes.
So for example, when we have our board of delegates meetings, which are, the next one will be in May, you'll hear from Narissa about opportunities to promote the meeting with your county representatives from municipalities in your county. So that could be offering, hey, I'm driving in, does anyone need a ride? Or does everyone know how to get to Centralina? Just communication and reminders about the meetings, that's one example. When it comes to policy and program issues, just knowing that any one of our staff will be a great bridge and connector, even if they're not the right person for that particular issue. We're a small organization, so if your community is struggling with a particular issue, whether it's housing, maybe it's water, maybe it's budgeting and finance, just ask us, and if we don't know, we can connect you to the right person. So just those open lines of communication. I think the last example is help us understand what the needs are. So some counties meet as a group of municipalities or have regular meetings and engagement, or maybe you're just talking to your peers. When I know a group was just in DC for the National League of Cities meeting. If you're talking and you're all grappling with a similar issue, lift that up to us. Because that will help us understand where we might be able to add value in terms of programming. Is that good?
Yes. Yeah, it always helps like when you're new, because I started in COVID and that was so hard. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anything else online or in person? Hearing nothing, we'll move to the next item, item 8, and we'll recognize our executive director once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So tonight's meeting is very important because we wanted to provide the executive board with a preview of our progress on updating Centralina's 3-year strategic plan. So as I noted before, this item will be before you for approval at next month's meeting. So it is kind of vital that we hear from you regarding any concerns or points of view or perspectives that you want to share with us so that we can take that into account over the next month as we finalize the document and get prepared to present it to you. So just a couple of basics, especially for our newer members. Our current strategic plan ends in June 30th of this year. It has been a great document for us to be organized in terms of what our priorities are and spending our resources and our capacity working towards those specific goals and strategies. But our region and the organization has changed over these last 3 years. And it's time to update the plan to make sure that we're really on point for what the future requires of us and what our communities need. So the time period for the new plan will be for fiscal 26 through the end of fiscal 28. So that's effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. In terms of what we're focused on, it's our primarily our goals and our strategies. This fall, we engaged the former executive board on a discussion regarding our current mission, vision, and core values. The feedback we got from that engagement was these still serve us. We are still on track. No changes needed at that level. So we have been focusing our efforts on our goals and our strategies, which is really the heart and soul of any strategic plan. Our timeline, we did engagement, internal and external engagement all throughout the fall, and a very intensive engagement in January with stakeholders through a survey, and that full survey results and an executive summary were in your agenda packet. We're right now in our plan development and board engagement phase. And as I mentioned before, the full updated plan will come to you next month for approval. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the key takeaways from our stakeholder survey that we had out for about 3 weeks in January and February. We sent this out to all board members. We sent it to regional managers, our networks and aging, workforce, community development and planning, all sent it out to staff and NGO and institutional stakeholders in their networks. So I was really pleased with the response. We got about 120 responses. which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at the geographic diversity and the thematic diversity, it really hit on all the key areas, which I was really happy with. So you can see some of the statistics here. People are informed about what Centralina does and who we are. They are satisfied with our work, and they felt that the engagement that they had with us was just right. So again, pretty positive indicators from my perspective, and that they've engaged with us in different ways, whether that's meetings, virtual engagements, events. So it hasn't just been one method of engagement, which I think is important for us to continue to cultivate. The value of Centralina. So we asked respondents why they felt this organization was important. And you can see here that networks, connecting with peers, information and resources, and professional development and continuing education were the top 3 responses. There are about 8 choices, and I think we asked folks to select their top 3. So again, lots of different ways that people can identify value with the organization, which is great. We also asked questions about the future. So we had, again, some choices and asked folks to give us their top 3 activities that they felt would be impactful, new activities that would be impactful, and services that would be valuable. So you can see those results here listed on the slide. A couple of things that I wanted to lift up to the board in particular, under the activities that would be impactful for elected officials. We heard a lot of a desire, and I think this came out in the dialogue in February as well, that you all want more forums to talk to each other, which is lovely and great. And we want to make sure we're utilizing these meetings for that purposes, as well as doing some specific programming for elected officials. And I'm looking at Commissioner Powell, because she had reached out to me after the February meeting. And I don't know if you wanted to share your example of where you thought it would be interesting to have some conversations with other board members and elected officials.
So I think it's like, it was very apparent in our meeting in February that the jobs we have are stressful, that we have a lot on our shoulders, no matter where you are. People have an idea of what an elected leader is, and they all think we have magic powers. And so there's a lot of stress. And so you could feel it, like there were people sitting here, everybody has a different stress. But then there are also things that happen to elected leaders where they'll think, oh, there's Mecklenburg, like, Mecklenburg, they got everything they want, which is so not true. Like, we have way more problems, and it's, so it really helps to talk with each other, to be open to learning what the challenges are in Peachland and Love Valley, but also like to learn what the challenges are in Mecklenburg. And I just think there's some kind of healthy thing that happens when we share that with each other. And I think it helps us be better leaders, but it also decreases, you feel like you have a support network kind of. Because there aren't a lot of people you meet in life that are elected. And so it's like, we have that in common, but it's a lonely place sometimes. And it's hard to explain to someone, even to my family, they see how hard I work, but they still don't understand it. Anyway, I think that as I left the meeting, the last meeting, I thought, wow, there's so many times where people assume things about others and they don't know. And so how do we do better connecting and supporting each other? And I think it would be really valuable if we had just that kind of first meeting to brainstorm on what do we need. But I hope I described that well.
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, thank you.
And that to me is just another way of answering the value proposition of being involved in the organization when you're getting something out of it personally. And in addition to lending us your time to treasure to help our organization move forward. We want it to be a reciprocal relationship. And I think we've asked collectively a lot of our board over the last 3 years to give to us. And I just see an opportunity in this new strategic plan to create spaces for us to give back to you, whether that's just a forum for you to have that conversation or some structured programming that would help you do your work better for your communities. So I think there's an opportunity there that we can really leverage, and we were seeing that in the results from the survey in addition to what you told us in February. So a couple of other things from the survey, just to lift up, again, this gets to more policy and topics that shape a little bit more of what we do and what we work on moving forward. So you can see here, top priorities for local governments. So these are the things that the people who took the survey told us are important in their communities. And then we also asked what's important for us to collaborate on regionally. And I think you can see pretty clearly there's a strong desire for some sort of regional conversation around housing access and affordability, as well as the typical refrain that we've heard for many years now, which doesn't go away, around growth and really unpacking what growth is and what it means and how we can be supportive. A couple of other new topics, food systems and food security came up pretty strong. I think Linda and her team were delighted to see that aging and older adult quality of life was a priority, especially since that's our fastest growing age demographic. That issue is not going away, and we continue to have to think about how we can be innovative in our collaboration on that. So just a couple of examples. So turning that into, we listened, we engaged, we did a lot of internal engagement. Now we're in the phase where we're working on goals. So good goal practice, goal development practice is, goals are really an outline and they're a framework for action. So they're broad. They have to be relevant for 3 years. They can't be totally specific and pigeonhole us. They need to be flexible. We like to balance being attainable with ambitious, that sort of balance, secret sauce as best we can. And we need them to be strategic. So, how do we not just recreate the wheel, but make sure that we're really reflecting on what works and moving our organization forward in a way that's going to, again, align with what the region and our members need. These are our current goals. There's also a handout in your packet that kind of walks through these next couple of slides in sort of one place. Our goals are organized around 3 different levels. So the first is really regional engagement. The second is local government work. The third is our person-centered services, primarily aging and workforce. And our fourth goal is around our organization and moving that forward in organizational excellence. So we really looked at these goals and we came up with some principles that we would use to really be a framework for how we update them. So the first is let's work with preserve aspects of the current goals that are still relevant. So really reframe and refine where we need it, but really think critically about these goals. And maybe there's a little nugget of what is still important, and that's in that table in your packet that kind of summarizes that. The second principle is we want to make sure that our goals are cross-departmental and not reinforcing silos. And I think that is the big takeaway from our current goals. We've got our regional bucket, we have our local government bucket, we have our services bucket, and it was neat and tidy, but not necessarily as efficient and collaborative. So that we want to change. The third principle is we continue to see value in being issue neutral. So not having a transportation goal, a housing goal, a water goal, because we need these goals to be flexible and we need to be responsive to your needs. We really want them to be issue neutral and to give us that flexibility. And then last, the fourth principle, and probably the most important to me, is our vision has this phrase that the board was really the authors of when we did this 3 years ago. And it talks about Centralina being a collaborative organization and a trusted partner. And we really can't get to that vision unless we are specifically focusing on relationship development and engagement. And so for us, that really came through that we really need to focus on that at the goal level and not just have it embedded in everything that we do. So here are some developing concepts. Again, this is kind of your opportunity to give us feedback. These goals will have specific strategies that will help implement them. So it looks broad. And if you remember our current strategic plan, we've got big, broad goals and like very specific strategies underneath. So there is some meat on the bone here. You just may not see it on the screen yet. So let's just kind of, we'll go through these and then would love for some feedback from you all. Are we on track? Do you see anything missing? Do you have questions? Those are kind of like the big points of feedback I love to hear. So the first goal is what used to be the regional only goal. And really what this goal has become is around all issues. So how we collaborate to prepare, plan, and act on issues that respond to today's needs and tomorrow's opportunities. So in this goal, that's going to be our work, whether it's transportation or housing or water. It's not only what we're doing regionally, but how we are supporting our local governments digest and act on these issues. So it's really about regional to local, not just regional. And I think that's the big change compared to our current goal in this area. The second goal is to strengthen capacity, efficiency, and innovative practice to improve quality of life and enhance economic opportunity. So that phrase is from our mission statement. And the change here is goal 2 used to always just be about local governments, local government capacity building, efficiency, and innovative practice. We've broadened that slightly here because we want to help Linda's aging network build their capacity to deliver services. We want to partner with our workforce board and the businesses they serve to make sure that they're doing their work efficiently. So we want it just to be a little bit more broad while we still focus on the core capacity building work with our local governments. So let me pause on those two just to kind of see if that resonates with folks. Happy to give some examples of emerging strategies. But what's your thought? Are these kind of on point for where we need to be headed?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm new to all of this, very new, so. How do you point out these issues? Like, I mean, I have it in my head, what I think it needs, but how do you connect with the community and see what's really needed? I mean, do you just go around asking people? I mean, how does that?
Yeah, so that survey is a really important input. Our regional managers meetings are really important. We hear directly from your managers where this issue is coming up for us. We would love some support here. And then these board meetings as well are an opportunity for us to hear from you all on things that are actively at play in your community, and then how we could develop programming or supports that support you in the work that you're doing locally.
Well, I mean, I get that within the group, but what about the community part? I mean, our community is what it is. And I mean, we need it all, if that makes sense. So how do you align those issues and get them taken care of? Like, how do you know which is more important in the line of things, kind of?
So Geraldine, may I? Sure. I think that, Kenny, when you said that you're new to all of it, okay? Even love what, because we've never had anybody on here from Lovejoy. I love it. I mean, I love it. I love it.
Someone on,
Yeah,
I think it was-
got used to it.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I just moved to Love Valley in June.
Like June of
This year.
24.
Yes.
Golly, I love it. Love it.
From Charlotte.
I love it.
Oh, wow.
From Charlotte.
From Charlotte.
So you've gone from big to very
Very
small.
That's right.
So as I understand what you're asking, not necessarily, maybe I'm understanding it wrong, not how does the region figure out, but how are you supposed to figure out
What
in
is
Love
now?
Valley?
That's right.
Well, I think
That's
he's
what
not,
I'm here for is.
not necessarily going to
Yeah.
the cog, but right next door. I mean, and y'all may or may not have had a strategic plan in Love Valley, and that's where they, for instance, Geraldine and her group have come to Albemarle and have helped us do that just in Albemarle. And to do that in Albemarle, they've done all kinds of surveys. We've put them out there on the web. We've gone door to door to some. We've gone to events within the community, just with our pad and paper. I mean, sometimes, but I know where you're coming from. You want to hear what's going on and what folks locally want.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. And we can help you and support you in that work. We don't do it for you. We support and enable, whether it's you and the council or your administrator, come up with strategies to understand what those issues are. And 9 times out of 10, things that you're hearing in Love Valley, Councilmember Russia is probably also hearing in East Spencer or in Peachland. There's a lot of similar challenges. They look a little bit differently in terms of the solutions, right? But that's where we can be helpful in connecting people and learning from each other.
Okay.
And that would be, to kind of bring it back to the goals, that's the work that we would do under goal 2. Yeah. Other points of feedback, questions on these 2? Okay, I'm gonna kind of keep us moving and keep thinking. So this 3rd goal is really coming back to that point I made about the importance of relationship building and really emphasizing this in this new plan. So we have a specific goal that you see here, goal number 3, cultivate relationships to support awareness, collaboration, and impact. So that's internal relationships. So I want Katie, I'm gonna pick on you, Katie Kutcher, our assistant aging director, being fluent in what our planning department does. So that if she's out in the community and gets a question, she's able to connect people to the right place. So internal relationships about what we do, as well as our relationships with everyone here and in the community. So making sure that we're really investing our time and capacity, that you know who to call, you know us. It's not just, oh, you come to a meeting and you see us, but we're present and we're really investing in that. And then lastly, our goal about our organization. So investing in innovation and infrastructure to support Centralina is a high performing, highly desirable place to work. This is really important. It's hard to be a local public servant these days. I think everyone's sort of, after the pandemic, just trying to do this work. And we just want to make sure we're continuing to be a place where people want to be, serving their community, serving the region, and that we're being efficient in our work and we are being innovative. So that's really our focus in goal number 4. So still 4 goals, but a little bit different than the current ones. Thoughts and additional comments, direction. Even if it's a thumbs up, I'll take that too.
So this is just a question.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about organizational excellence, I've had to deal with so many different situations this week where you're talking about an organization that needs to improve or wants to improve, is committed to that, but is working on skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Is that the case here?
So I am making sure as we go through this process, that all the directors and the staff that are engaged in the strategic plan development are being very feasible, very reasonable in designing these strategies, because our head count is a little lower. Who knows, with uncertainty with the resources, what might be ahead of us. There's always going to be great need. The need outstrips our capacity. it is what it is. So we're trying to think about how we can not do more with less, but do more or do something and make sure that we're maximizing its impact. For example, we had Centralina Learns with strategics and EQB on advocacy, how to be a good advocate for your community, how to engage. We did one webinar, we recorded it. That webinar could be broken down into a one-pager that gets sent to all of you with some tips. That webinar could be sent around in the newsletter as a featured story. How can we get more mileage out of what we're already doing as opposed to doing that webinar 3 different times? So that's what we're trying to think more strategically about. We just did a staffing study for the city of Albemarle. Really interesting work model for what we could do in other communities. How can we take that and replicate it in other places? So we're doing the work once, but we're taking the model and we're applying it in other communities. That's where I think we can do more with less individual headcount in the organization.
And I think that there are places where that works,
Yes.
and then there are places where it's a disaster. And so it's extremely important to have human touch points that are responsive. And how do you work that in when you have skeleton crew?
We don't have a skeleton crew yet. But I think that's where this third goal of relationship building is where that's our backstop. Because if it's just the responsibility of me, directors and government affairs and member engagement to build relationships, we're never gonna move the needle. This third goal is about every single person who comes to this organization is helping us deliver our vision of being a trusted partner. That might look different if you're an ombudsman than it does if you're part of game or part of planning, but everyone carries that responsibility. And I think that will help us be more present in the community while we do our work. So spreading that responsibility around to everyone is really important.
And it just keeps coming up, of like spreading it. But also, there's some things happening, this cultural shift since COVID, where people think, oh, like, they just, and I know I sound like an old person.
It's okay, Elaine, I do too.
But there's this loss of human connection.
Yep.
And it's hurting things. And so I keep saying human touch points because there's just, I keep seeing it where it's significantly hurting progress where it's most needed. And, you know, how do you work that in here where you don't lose that important human touch point part? Because, you know, like when you said you could make the webinar into a sheet, that's good for some people. But then there's, you know, especially when you're new in leadership, the webinar is extremely helpful. But in person is, when I first came to a meeting with you before COVID, it was so great because everybody was interacting together. And I still like you carry that with you, like all the interaction. It's so impersonal. And I know young people like this, but I don't. I mean, it's really hurting people, all of this virtual everything. And there is a great place for it. Like, I'm really glad Jennifer Stepp is on the phone because she's such a great representative. But how do we not lose that human touch point?
Yeah. Agreed, it's hard.
Yeah.
So 2 follow-throughs to that or follow-ups with that. Having just been in DC for the last 3 days and was on Capitol Hill yesterday and was in the same room yesterday on Monday with Vice President, okay, who spoke. And I preface, I don't like politics. I really don't. I like good government. And sometimes you have to weed through all the politics to get to good government. But he, the vice president, mentioned somewhere in his comments. And then when we went to Capitol Hill yesterday, they like to hear stories of real people. And I think that's where, and I think over the years that we're able to tell stories. I mean, and I look at aging because y'all know y'all are number one in my heart when it comes to what COG does. Okay, but you all can tell that story so well because it's not just old people. Sorry, Wes. It's not, I mean, it's services and we're a graying community. Okay, I mean, I used to think, what does that word mean? Now I understand. But I think that's the thing is that we've still, and to your point about touch points and people points, we got to be able to tell those stories. And we got to be able to find those stories, Kenny, in our communities of where it's being done. Okay, so I agree with that. The two things that really still concern me, again, prior to COVID, we go back to pre-COVID. No, church attendance is down everywhere. Any kind of organization attendance is down. Just groups are down because they realize they didn't have, people have to get involved to do things. And I think that may be a leaning and making the community as a whole more, not apathetic, but they don't want to get involved. And I think what we've got to do is give people something to make them want to get involved. And you know, you used to hear, this was 40 years ago, what's in it for me? Where if you feed them, they will come. Or if you build them, they will come. Okay? I don't even know if that works anymore. I mean, you know?
I think we're losing this area, and being in Stanton County, it's coming this way, coming our way. But I think that we are losing our identity by delusion. And there's so many diverse ideas that people are putting out there that it's got to the point that people don't want to fight it anymore. They just kind of, instead of standing up for what they believe in, they just kind of let it go and then fuss about it after the fact. I mean, I'm from Cabarrus County originally. I see, and you know, this is probably maybe a bad thing to say, but over the last 20 years, I've seen what the government there has done to promote growth. And, you know, just, of course, it was coming that way anyhow, but they really promoted it. And all of a sudden, they're stuck now with their britches down because they don't have the resources to do this. And it's scary. It's just really scary. And so I think that this organization is one that a place like Norwood, who is around the edge of the world, or if you go anywhere to farther that, you know, there's not much, nothing but woods, but, you know, we're sitting there watching to see, you know, waiting to see what we're going to need to do to be able to survive the change, because it's coming.
And growth is coming whether we want it or not.
Yeah.
Growth is here. And COG, to COG's, before we ever had a strategic plan, okay? 30 years ago, Centralina was saved because of the studies. This region is going to double in population by 2030. Oh, no, it won't. No. It has it not?
We're on track.
I mean, Union County alone, oh my goodness, it's just.
I was reading the pilot, this thing I get from the paper in Southern Pines. They
Yeah.
have an immediate need for 8,100 housing units right now.
And I think it's
Crazy.
the responsibility of our organization, I think, just to kind of tie together these comments. We have to create an invitation
Yes.
that is exciting, that
Yes.
people says, oh, yes, I'm gonna travel fight the traffic.
Right.
And show up and be there, and it's gonna be worth my time. So that's on us, right? But I think it's also an opportunity, like you all who are on the call or in the room today, have found value in coming together. So we need to continue to not just diagnose things, so growth, right? Well, we gotta unpack that. Well, what does that actually mean? And how does that actually help you get prepared for what's coming next? So that's where our programming starts to come in a little bit too. And I think, we have to be self-sustaining, we have to find resources, and we, in the last, 5 years, we've had the ability to tap into grants and other programs that have taken our, taken what we focus on in a certain direction. And I think what we're seeing now is a course correction a little bit back to the core needs of the region, that I think will be value add to what you all are grappling with. And that's good, like that, we're gonna have those ebbs and flows, and I think we have to create community within the region for folks to come together and have an opportunity to learn and to make good decisions for your communities.
I think that we get, we're asked as officials to tolerate and accept growth and different ideals. But then once we're asked to do that, then we're gonna be the ones that's gonna be asked to make it work.
Yes.
And that's tough. I mean, Norwood, our area, we're not there yet, but it's coming.
So back to your goals, the one thing that scares me, that absolutely scares me for COG, is what's going on in the federal government. And I have articulated this for the last 2 or 3 months. With knowing that Centralina gets a lot of their money as pass-throughs, not a lot, but a percentage that's federal money. What's gonna happen if that source is cut? And it scares me for the people who work here, but it really scares me for the stuff those people are doing and the service they're providing, okay? And I'm just gonna use as home delivered meals as just a tangible example, okay? You think about the people in your communities, and I'm sorry I am ramrodding this, but this is what scares me. If you all miss out on some of that money because that's somewhere that's something that's gonna be cut, whether it's talked about or not. You think about all those folks out there right now who are missing out on that one hot meal and that other stuff that they get every day. But the visit that they get when that home delivered meal is delivered. That's just one real tangible one for me. So that really scares me for COG, because I don't want tomorrow, maybe the cut of tomorrow is federal funding dealing with home and community care. I mean, that's where I'm coming from, and you can't live scared. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I mean, we won't be the only organizations,
No.
our organization, we've been around for 55 years. We've survived transition at federal and state level. Like, I think we're very resilient.
Good.
And what we're focused on is being good stewards of these funds, which is our bread and butter, making sure that people are doing what they said they were gonna do
Right.
to a high degree of standards, and meeting the needs in the community. That's what we're focused on. And I think we can have some contingencies and plan, but at the end of the day, we need to stay focused on our mission.
That's right.
So that's how we're approaching all of this. Cool. Any other comments on our goals? It seems like we're on track. If I'm sort of reading the Zoom room and in the room here. So in terms of next steps, we're finalizing the goal language. You've got teams working on each goal to develop strategies. We have our all staff retreat on Friday, the 21st, where we'll talk about this with the full staff. And then we're gonna wrap all of this up together in a document that you'll receive in your agenda packet for the April 9th meeting. We'll walk through the plan, we'll walk through the strategies, and hope that that will be endorsed for approval at the April 9th meeting. Assuming that's on track, our team will then pivot to working on the implementation plan for next fiscal year, which is the very tactical, what are we gonna do? And then the budget that funds it. And then you'll receive that at the June 11th meeting for review and approval just for next fiscal year's implementation. So that's kind of what we have ahead of us. I think that was it.
I just have one more thing to ask, and tell me if it fits in me. But when we're leading regional engagement to prepare, plan, and act on issues that respond to today's needs and tomorrow's opportunities. This is deep, like, I'm deep thinking. How do you, this is important, how do you deal with when you get a survey back and no matter where you are in the nation, affordable housing is gonna come in the top? But you have so many other needs that you know are priorities from Connect Our Future, regional priorities. How do you deal with that when you get a survey that says that's the top and you know that our priorities, that's important. I think it's one of the 10 priorities that came up, but it could gobble up every dollar.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this body is for. I mean, we'll present to you a work plan in June that is our interpretation of how we thread that needle. And then you will be able to tell us in May, we have our May Board of Delegates meeting, where we'll do some engagement. This is the direction that we're headed in. We'll take that feedback from you, and then by the time you see it in June, will be our interpretation of what we do. It might be, we need a regional housing summit. That might be what we propose. It might be that we don't have the resources for that, but we'll come to every county and we'll do a county-specific conversation on housing. So I think that's our creativity and innovation, where we need to figure that out and then give that to you all to say, yeah, that's gonna work for us, or you know, we'd love to do that in Mecklenburg, but in Stanley, we're a little far away. Maybe we don't need to do that this year. We can do it in 2 years, kind of thing. So that's where this body will help us with those decisions. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I just see a lot of times, like you have a body, like a group of elected leaders that like get stuck in something that really isn't like a future, like they're stuck there because they want to get reelected. And it's like really not doing the future any good. And so I just want to make sure that we're all working together to really prepare for the future. Because sometimes, and it's just an observation, I think we all see it. Some bodies are very short-sighted. And I feel like Centralina is more, which is why I wanted to be part of it. You know, like I wanted to have it when Commissioner Fuller was here, but he wouldn't give it up. And I was like, but I want to be involved because this is long range and that matters. And so that's why I'm bringing it up here, but you help me understand. Thank you.
Okay, excellent discussion. Thanks to the questions from all that. That generated a lot of thought, and we need that. Well, okay, next item, we do have a board. So we get to vote on the agenda, which are items 1, February 8th, 2025 executive board meeting minutes. Item 2, ask for the authorization to receive funding from the city of Charlotte to support the implementation of the Solar Rise Charlotte-Mecklenburg project. Item 3 is a resolution to support Centralina's grant application to the NCDOT fiscal year 2026 public transportation program to implement the Connect Centralina, which was approved by the executive board in September 2024. Item 4, ask for the authorization to receive funding from the state for an expanded senior nutrition program called PEAS. And item 5 and 6, which ask for the authorization to receive funding from the state to administer grant programs on behalf of the towns of Norwood and Wadesboro. Are there any comments on this agenda?
Martha Sue, move approval.
Second.
Well, a motion and a second. Are there any other discussion before we vote to approve these items? Online or otherwise? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the ayes have, the ayes have it, so the motion passes. Okay. Number 9? Okay. Yep, we're gonna move to item 9 now. Thanks for folks that showed up so we could have a forum and get that taken care of. Item 9 is North Carolina Community Care Hub, NCCCH participation and aging services spotlight. Now call on Linda Miller, who will share an update on the status of the North Carolina Community Care Hub progress and development. Recognize Linda.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. And you're a live bunch tonight. It was really good. I leaned over to Katie and I said, after 27 years, finally, everybody's talking aging. And it's a fight, right, Geraldine? Initially in those early years, right? But not now. So you're very in
She's older
vogue.
than I am.
You're very in vogue, Mr. Hartzell. You know, you're where it's at. So I did want to bring to your attention that we have brand new, hot off the press. We call these the aging profiles. There is one for every county stacked up over there. You can take your county, there's multiple copies. You can take another county if you want to compare in size. They're stacked up over there. There is also at your, where you're sitting, I passed around in region. This is the Centralina region, our 9 counties. What do we look like? And it's interesting. We just got these last week. And then there's a North Carolina aging profile. And it's over there too. If you want to look at that, what's North Carolina look like? What do we expect in the future? And you can see just for us alone, in some age groups, over 60 and up, we're looking at 27, 57, 70%, 162% increases in your older, in 85 and up. I know that's not a lot of people, but you can just see that people are living longer, they're retiring here, we've become more and more popular. And so spend some time with those. They're very interesting, and they are over there at the end of the meeting. Please feel free. If you need anything, you want the electronic versions, please email me or Katie and we'll get those for you. It is hard. Yeah, it is hard to read when you use it as a slide, I'll admit. All right.
Question, I find it interesting that the growth of the older people and the growth in general. I mean, are that many older people moving here? I would have thought it would have been the opposite, that the percentage would have gone down.
And we're not having the babies. Our baby, I mean,
I'm not having it.
I know you're not, but no, I mean, the baby population. There was a day and time in across the region that we had more pre-K spots available than we had children. And we had more opportunities for 0 to 5 with Smart Start state money than we had. We're just, our baby population is not coming up.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you see that right there.
Yeah, right. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Katie Kutcher. She's one of our assistant directors and she's here for the evening. Martha Sue made that point, but Katie, correct me, that I think for the first time in North Carolina, of the 100 counties, 80% or 90%, is it higher than that?
Have more people over the age.
Right, over the age of 60 than under 18. So that illustrates that point. We just don't have many, young
Tell me the truth
children.
about that.
Yeah.
'Cause in my town, we don't have many babies in there, no more. I think we got 4 children that live in our neighborhood where I live.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's attributable to healthy living.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to spend some time, there's a resource, but I want to spend a few minutes tonight talking about a North Carolina community care hub. And what community care hubs are, is they're emerging as solutions to the problem, as Martha Sue brought up before, of both improving care and generating income by centralizing functions that may be individual community-based organizations. We're a community-based organization that are challenging us in performing it. We don't have capacity, we don't get the funds anymore. So community care hubs are banding together to make these hubs that generate income from other ways. Private industry, for one. Healthcare contracts, those kinds of things. So they're recognized legal entities, and it helps community care hubs can be more efficient and more effective. A AAA is a community-based organization. So are other things. We have independent nonprofits such as Cabarrus County has a Meals on Wheels, Rowan County has a they're independent nonprofits, but they're in our network and they can be used to help us deliver services. And in North Carolina, the different regional councils across in North Carolina are exploring this model for our future. We're going a long way every time. So community care hubs can be multiple organizations working together as a hub to provide these services. Can be in a multiple county area, like just the 9 counties of Centralina. It can serve a whole state, all 100 counties, if you have coverage. And we have samples of community care hubs that actually service a couple of states that go across state lines. Services provided right now, most of what we're looking at in the North Carolina model are provided through the AAAs. It's the lowest hanging fruit. And they're the most in demand right now with healthcare organizations. Later, other services may become more popular or needed, and then they may be offered. This supplements funding and does not supplant funding. So if you're worried that if we generate income from this and they'll cut back on our funding and our grants, that's not true. It supplements funding. It allows us to expand services. And then each individual AAA continues to provide their own services. It doesn't mean that everything we do is part of this hub, only certain things. There's sort of a schematic. You have these community care hubs, community-based organizations. Does that have a little light? No. And then we offer those different types of services, and these would be potential buyers. Healthcare plans, providers of other, other services, foundations, government agencies, potentially. So the goals right now of this hub in the extremely early stages through North Carolina are to establish this single recognized sort of point of entry for contracting to make it easy for somebody who's looking for the services. There are 16 regional councils. I don't want to sign 16 contracts if I'm United Healthcare. I want to sign one, and I want you to cover the whole state for me. And this is what I want. So it's attractive. Talked about providing that statewide coverage is something that we'd like to do, build this infrastructure, select a model. There are about 3 or 4 different types of community care hub models, and then identify services, that low-hanging fruit that are ready and attractive for buyers. And of course, one of the biggest challenges, even early on, is procuring startup funds and funds to sustain the hub. One of the the model right now that they're looking at, and I'll tell you why I wrote that, I don't want to miss my couple of notes. The reason they like this federated model is because it's one of the most inexpensive, if not the most expensive model to get off the ground. Because what you rely on is in the partners in the hub to work to their strengths and to their capacity. So you might have one of the regional councils says, well, you know, I can handle all of the contract admin and compliance. Or I can handle the tech and security. We have a great security guy, tech guy. We'll do that. And we'll offer different components and pieces so that we don't have to pay somebody to do that right now. Or it's minimal payment. Rather than, as opposed to hiring somebody outside the group of the partners within the hub. That can also morph into something else as you begin to gain more and more contracts, generate more income, and those things can start to drop off. Okay, it can change into something else.
And then before we go to this, we can go back one.
Back one more to that.
Go back to the diagram, two, that one. Can you give a couple of examples of services that might, we've been talking about?
Yeah, I'm thinking one of the popular ones is case management or trying to think of some of the other evidence-based programs they may want. They're having problems with people that had diabetes and they can't get it under control. A healthcare organization may say, we know that you offer this diabetes self-management class. If we pay for that for our clients and you can prove that it has improved their scores, that they're more compliant, that type of thing, well then, you know, we'll keep in business with you. And you have to show data to show that you're effective. Another one has been case management. A lot of the healthcare organizations are so big, like United, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They do some case management, but they can't get the boots on the ground to say, well, I can't get Ms. Burns. You know, I have her, I told her what she needs to do, but she won't do it for me. I want you to be the connection now. And I want you to provide transportation to get her to the doctor. And I want you to make sure she gets these nutritious meals. We can pay for that. Very similar. In some instances, they can be similar to the Older Americans Act services we provide. Trying to think of some of the more creative ones.
Well, I think the falls one,
falls is a good one.
prevention really stands out. And granted, I'm the novice compared to the experts here, but just if a healthcare company, if you fall in your home and you break your hip, that insurance company is going to pay, I don't know what, $200,000 or more
For a hip or a
for
hospital
hip,
stay.
for hospital stay, post-op, pre-op, the whole thing, right? So
Rehab.
what they want to do instead is work with the AAAs to say, we're gonna go into your home, we're gonna do an assessment of everything that could make you fall, maybe do some installations of support, and that's gonna cost us $200. And we'd rather do that as opposed to paying to $200,000. So that's the market that we're trying to tap into, because that's falls prevention work that they already do as part of their AAA services that we do now.
And just for new folks, that's what we deal, that's those services that you provide then go to our counties through the senior centers. Is that, or somehow?
It just
'cause I think
depends. There are
that's
different.
one of the issues that we need to
Right.
know is, okay, we say we're doing it, but how do they do it down in Love Valley? I mean, how do they get it? But, and it's through.
Most of our funds for direct services are pass-through funds in which in your local counties, there are either county-based providers like your Departments of Social Services, or there are nonprofits such as Rowan County Meals on Wheels. yeah, who then deliver with some of the funds that are provided, but through us. They also, a lot of them have other funding that they expand services, but they do that. We also have in-house funding that we maintain to deliver services still that serve all 9 of your counties. The newest one for the last 3 years almost has been the home improvement, in which was just that model that Geraldine explained. We go in, short list, and assess the home for safety, falls risks. You know, if we spend $1,500 to put up some outside rails, some lighting, ramp, some rails in the bathroom, we can do that. Those types of things. And that's very attractive to a Blue Cross Blue Shield. In fact, we did have a grant for a year in which we did just that. And the data was astounding. We reduced falls by 67%. And that was Blue Cross Blue Shield who paid an intermediary to find us to help us do all that work.
So part of the reason we wanted to bring this up to the board is that it's going beyond our normal set of Older Americans Act services that Linda and her team deliver on a daily basis. It's also getting into some of our resilience and looking at sources of funding that might be stable in the long term. So it kind of diversifies our funding for aging services that helps with some of the issues that you brought up, Mayor Pro Tem Hall. But there's some risks involved too. I mean, we're basically as 16 organizations, councils of government, and there are 4 that are not participating. So 4 COGs have said, nope, we're not doing this. You have to figure out how to serve our area in a different way, are coming together to create an organization that will serve as a nonprofit that will contract with these healthcare companies. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear. So we will be entering into an organization, we'll be signing up to be a member of an organization, and we will be contracted to deliver these services if a big deal comes through from Aetna, from United, et cetera.
Remembering again that it has no impact on the services we offer currently. It does
And we
not.
have the funds to do it. It's only $10,000.
Correct.
And we've got them in next year's budget that we can pull that from. Question, which 4 or not? That's interesting to me that we've got. I mean, I'm looking at the list right now.
So it's Foothills Regional Commission, which is directly to our west, Cleveland County over, there are 4. So we do a lot of work with Cleveland County, so that's kind of an easier fix. Cape Fear Council of Governments, which is Wilmington and surrounds. Help me, Linda.
Above that, New Bern and all the surrounding, they serve 9 or 10, 11. New Bern.
And then there's one kind of up a little, interestingly, the COGs on the coast, which have a lot of older adult population, are not participating. They just don't have the capacity. They have very small teams and aren't ready to join at this time. Yeah.
Right, so our participation in this sort of venture would be as the provider, implementer, and that would be contracted to provide services in our region or expand to somebody else's region if it's something that we have capacity to do through direct services or contracted. And then, of course, Geraldine just explained, maybe potentially cover other regions. Cleveland would be not a very heavy lift at all because of their lack of capacity. And of course, as a member, you get representation on the nonprofit North Carolina Community Care Hub Board. Now, there's an expanded role if it's something that we think is a good idea for us, and that would be part of the hub administration in that federated model. We would continue that part as a provider, but take on additional responsibilities of an administrative function, maybe something we feel we have capacity in, or we're really good at, or so forth. And we talked about that might diminish as the hub moves forward, starts to make money, starts to become more and more independent and freestanding as a 501c3, but that may diminish, but those, I apologize. Those are the sort of administrative functions.
And those, we may not get recouped for our costs for some time until there's some revenue coming in. So I think that's the, yeah, we're bigger, we have more capacity, but I think we have to see if that's what we want to do. So we wanted to brief you all on this, to see if there are any emerging concerns or questions. We have the draft membership agreement that was in your packet. We have not signed that, nor have we paid our dues until we had this conversation. And there is an option if the board felt like we wanted to spread the risk around a little bit, we could join the hub as the foundation, the Centralina Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501c3, could be the member. That sort of buffers us a little bit as an entity. So Linda and Denise and I have talked about that as an option. So for example, there's penalties. You get a big contract from United, you fail to deliver, the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed, there's a hack, a breach, or whatever, then the hub gets a penalty, they pass that penalty down to the provider, which would be us. So that is just, those are some of the things that are, we have to weigh as we go forward in this work.
Any other questions?
I wanna ask, have Ansel County connected with you all about the service, the service you just mentioned?
Yes.
They have?
And we work, who's our partner in Anson County?
Talbot, Anson. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I saw on about the health plan, you say you just do United Health and Aetna and who?
Oh, we're not doing it yet, but those are examples
Oh,
of
okay.
contract that are looking for community-based organizations to increase their capacity out in these communities and reach people that they reach best.
So it appears that the dues is not gonna be per capita.
Flat fee.
Just flat fee, which I see that smile on your face. That was a win for us because Centralina's per capita is the largest in the state. So we got out good there. I like the idea of us reaching over if it's Shelby area, Cleveland County that's not there, if we're able to spread our little wings out there and help provide the services, because that is a money making for us. It's if we can go help them. I really like the idea of looking at it. Do we as Centralina become the member, or does the foundation? Because if this in fact is a 501c3 that we are being a part of, it looks like it's cleaner, legally cleaner, that a 501c3 would partner with a 501c3, then, I mean, I know it's not illegal, but it just looks like legally it would be easier for a 501 and a 501 to be joining. Or a 501, both of them are 501. And the liability, God forsake, would not be so great if it were just the foundation.
We could compartmentalize it
That's
off,
exactly.
the foundation could go under and we.
And we would be okay.
We would be
No,
okay.
and I mean, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Particularly in so much is that I know we don't have an attorney that we use as much now as we once had to use. And I think he's probably smiling down from heaven right now, the one we used for 1,000 years.
Bill
Because,
McNair.
yeah, Bill, I think he's probably, because he would probably say, we don't need to put all the cards in the deck in there, and we're just putting a couple of them if we do that. So I applaud you on that.
Yeah, we can continue to look at that and consult with the attorneys. The foundation board meets next month, so we can
Yeah,
go in that direction of we can explore all the options, but appreciate the comment.
And you struck a home run though, when you did not a per capita. I mean, if you had anything to do with that, Geraldine, you did well. Well, you did because we would have lost our teeth if we would have had to pay I mean, so thank you.
Thank you. And we'll keep you up to date.
Just a quick question. What is the timeline on this?
Well, I think that upon signing and paying the dues, I think probably within the next 30 to 60 days.
So it will come back to this board.
No, it won't come back because there's no financial
Okay, good.
transaction at this stage. Yes, they want all the membership agreements to be signed so they can start negotiating with the companies.
Good job, thank you. Our next item, 10, state and federal relations update. The last item on the agenda, we're calling Executive Director Centralina Gardner. We will introduce our guests and present the state and federal relations update.
Thank you. Just real quick, as we round out the evening, want to introduce a few updates on Raleigh relations. So the General Assembly is back in action in full swing. I get about 15 update emails a day with all the bills being filed, and we have a new resource that we have here at Centralina, which I'm really excited to talk about on Kelly's behalf tonight. Marissa, can you switch over to our website? So we are working with a company called Upstate. We have a subscription with them, and what Upstate allows us to do is review all the bills that are submitted in the General Assembly, and we can flag them that we want to track. And we will get updates, and we can do campaigns. So what Marissa is showing you is on our website, under the focus area, state and government relations tab, and we'll send this link out. You can see the running list of bills that we are tracking based on the approved legislative agenda that you all adopted in January. So we've tagged them with different tags, and we've stated our position. Right now, we're monitoring everything. So this will be a resource for you if you want to see what's happening in Raleigh that might impact you, whether it's zoning, transportation, local government. You'll just be able to click on, Marissa, maybe you could click on one of the, and it will take you to the Upstate page where you can see the text of the bill, and you can even jump the sponsors, and you can jump right to the North Carolina General Assembly website if you want to really dive into like what committees it's going to. So I think this is going to be a really great tool, and it will allow us to really track what's happening and provide you with real-time updates on bills that you care about. And speaking of that, if we can go back to the slide deck, Narissa, last time we had a session in January, we talked about the, talked about the down zoning section of the disaster recovery bill. So there's been a flurry of bills filed to restore the down zoning authority. And I just wanted to introduce Jason real quick to talk about some resources that we have for you tonight related to that item.
Yep, so just a reminder for the clip notes on down zoning, that's authority we all have locally when we want to take the intensity of the use from one thing to something a little bit less intense. So think industrial to residential. Senate Bill 382 really fit into that and took away local authority to be able to control those sorts of activities. So that was the concern. And in response to that, several folks around the state either passed resolutions to say, hey, we're against Senate Bill 382, or they said we would like local bills to get us out of this. That's now led to House Bill 24, which just says, look, we're gonna just take that piece out of the Senate Bill 382 legislation altogether, and that covers everybody. So what we have in front of you, I believe they're over on the side, you may have picked them up. There are a couple of examples from, one is Town of Apex and the other is Mackey Valley. You'll see they look very similar, a lot of repeated whereases and therefores, but there is a difference. So if you're either of your, if your community wanted to look at these a little further and pass your own resolution, that is something you can do. But what this does is give you a flavor for kind of the background on the issue and where some communities are going. And I think really where there might be value, I'll maybe turn it back to Geraldine, is through the upstate initiative. There may be a way for us as a region to also streamline this and make this a little easier. So let me know if you want any more detail, but I think that's the setup.
Thanks, Jason. So yeah, we can use upstate to, if we take a position supporting H24, then it will generate an email to our delegation stating that Centralina Regional Council supports this House bill, and we can list the reasons why. So it's a kind of a fully integrated ability to reach out and connect with our delegates. And our NCARCOG, so North Carolina Association of Regional Councils, legislative day is April 2nd. So this will be one that we can talk about. Also wanted to bring your attention to H374, which is a bill that introduces recurring funding for councils of government to support two areas that were the COG Association requested funding for positions that would support financial financial administrations and small local government, and also disaster recovery funding. So we'd have a disaster recovery and resilience planner at each of the 16 COGs, as well as someone who could support small communities if they were needed help with audits, financial statements, and other types of services. So that is another bill that we're looking at. So more to come. We'll be using this on our updates for future meetings, and I'll send around the link to everyone so you can start to play with it and learn more. And then real quick, lot of things happening in DC, and I'm excited to have Shirley Spidell from Strategics on Leslie's team joining us this evening. Shirley and I ran around Washington in the snow in February, did a bunch of meetings, met our new congressman, and it was a very productive introductory conversation. And so I want to turn it over to Shirley to say a few words about what's happening in DC and things that we should be on the lookout for.
Okay.
Can hear you, Shirley.
Oh, okay. I was just checking to make sure that I wasn't muted. Hi, everyone. I'll start with the shutdown, and I'll just potential for a shutdown, I should say, and go from there. As you may have heard, President Trump wants a clean CR continuing resolution with anomalies that operates the government until the end of September, which is what the House has sent over to the Senate. And they passed that bill and then they left town. So the message is implied, it's up to the Senate. This will be the first full year continuing resolution since 2011, and it will be the first ever continuing resolution to include the Department of Defense. In the Senate, the chances of a shutdown, I believe, are diminishing. They do need 7 Democrats to cross over to vote for the continuing resolution. This afternoon, or rather this morning, Senator Fetterman already said he would vote for it. A few other key Democrats have left the door open to it. Although later this afternoon, Schumer said that he would block a continuing resolution. I think the real question there is for how long, and it may just be a tactic to force a vote on a shorter term continuing resolution, which will fail, and then they can turn around and say, well, that they tried, and they'll allow the Republican version to move forward. I think that's the most likely path forward since the House and the Senate are both out next week. The budget, every year the president sends his budget to Capitol Hill, and that it's required by law to be there by February 15th. I don't remember the last time a president actually got the budget over there by February 15th, but it's been a long time. And particularly that never happens in a transition. The president's budget is usually dead on arrival when it lands on Capitol Hill. This year will be different. The Republican majority is looking to the president for leadership on the budget, and you can expect to see some of the DOGE cuts codified in that budget. So we're not sure exactly when that's coming, but that will be coming maybe around April, May timeframe. So that's something to keep an eye on. The big topic, of course, right now, though, is reconciliation, which is a tactic used whenever well, I wouldn't say whenever, but frequently, when one party wins the trifecta, when they win the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Republicans tend to use it for tax cuts. Democrats have used it for the Affordable Care Act, for ARPA, and for the Inflation Reduction Act. You may have also heard that the House passed the budget resolution, which reconciliation is a two-step process. It's two bills. The first bill is the budget resolution, which directs Congress to put together the reconciliation package. So the resolution that the House passed includes 4.5 trillion in tax cuts, 2 trillion in spending cuts, and a $4 trillion increase in the debt limit. The Senate won't consider that until later this month because next week, both the House and the Senate are out. It kind of remains to be seen what the Senate is going to do with this. Publicly, they're embracing the one big beautiful bill strategy. Behind closed doors, they're still working on their two-bill approach. And while they're doing that, the House is starting on the actual tax portion of reconciliation. This is a huge job they have in front of them. And it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, and how they're going to score it. Current policy baseline is something that has come up with, which basically means if it's currently in the budget, for example, like the tax cuts that were passed in 2017 are part of how the government is now operating. So those would get a zero-sum score under that. It'll be interesting to see if that's never passed muster with the parliamentarian before, and the fiscal hawks on both the House and Senate side aren't big fans of that. So that'll be an interesting issue to see how that plays out. Under normal circumstances, tariff revenue from executive action would not be included in the score. So given that, it may actually just be that the president comes out and says, these tariffs will pay for that. And that might allow Congress to move forward despite the bill having a big score. But the way the House is operating, it's very clear they're indicating they want the Senate to rubber stamp their budget resolution. They did not include any instructions for Senate committees, so the only instructions are for House committees, indicating they want the House to take the lead and to create the policy. The Senate is still weighing how to address that resolution. They're not sure what they want in the final bill. So stay tuned for more updates. That's the current lay of the land. I think we can expect to see FY 26 appropriations get underway as soon as they knock out FY 25, which could be as early as Friday. So,
Thank you, Shirley. Appreciate that. Any questions for Shirley? All right, the last little bit is just a reminder of some of our resources in our member portal. Again, the copy of our conversation with Leslie and Chris, Mayor Pro Tem Hall, and Justin Amos from Gaston County. We had a great little roundtable discussion. That recording is posted on our website. We've also updated the congressional calendar and contact lists. So just resources for you there. And that's it.
Okay, very good. Do you have any closing comments?
I do not. I just have some minutes.
Okay. Next, our next executive board meeting will be April the 9th, be held here at this office. The next Board of Delegates meeting will be May 14th. Please be on the lookout for agenda reminders from Narissa. A quorum is essential for this meeting. If you need to attend the meeting virtually, accommodations can be made. Are there any comments from the group? Welcome. Thank you, sir. All right, we've reached the end of our agenda. There being no further business to come before the board, I declare the meeting adjourned.